Welcome to VejaTV's continuing coverage of Newark Municipal Elections 2018. On May 8th, 2018, all Newark voters will go to the polls to elect our next mayor, 4 at-large council people, and their ward representative. VejaTV has had a series of interviews with all the East Ward candidates, and today we are pleased to have Councilwoman Gayle Chaneyfield-Jenkins, who is running for mayor here in the city of Newark. We remind everyone that the purpose of these interviews was to inform the community so they can make an educated decision and participate on May 8th. We need everyone to participate so we will have a more effective and efficient democracy going forward. So with that, we'd like to welcome Councilwoman Jenkins here to VejaTV, and thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Albert. I'm very happy to be here.
Well, Councilwoman, Ms. Jenkins, if you will, since you are a mayoral candidate now, so we'll go with that.
You can still call me Councilwoman.
So, all right, we'll stay with Councilwoman. You've obviously had a long career here in the city of Newark, but many of our viewers are, let's say, new to the community. Why don't you give us a little bit about your background?
Well, actually, I was born and raised in the city of Newark, and my father and mother were very tied politically into the city of Newark's politics. So I got civics lessons taught to me around the table. They were committed to making sure that they helped rebuild Newark. And in doing so, my mother and her twin sister, Mary Smith, created an organization called Babyland Family Services, which allowed women and men to go back to work while their children were still infants. It was the first of its kind in the state of New Jersey because they took 3-month-old children, and at that time you had to be 3 years old in order to go to preschool. My father and Monsignor Linder started New Community Corporation along with other members of Queen of Angels Church, and so giving back to the community has always been in my blood and working on campaigns. And in 1994 I decided to run at large, much to the surprise of my family, because it certainly wasn't a road I had expected to partake. But I was not successful. I was successful in the runoff, but I made it in 1995, and I served from 1995 to 2006 under the James administration, along with some great people like the late Councilman and Assemblyman Donald Tucker, Hank Martinez, Tony Carino, Ron Rice Sr., who was still a senator, Donald Bradley, and we had George Branch, who was a great Central Ward council person, and others. But being involved in Newark, I wanted to make sure that as a council person, I served at large at that time, that I was connected to all parts of the city and making sure that I assisted wherever I could to make the quality of life better for all residents.
Well, you clearly have an extensive background here in the city of Newark and have served, with distinction on the city council.
Thank you.
Tell us, why are you running for mayor?
Well, I decided to run in 2013, and I made a decision that I was originally going to run for Central Ward, which I did, and I ran on Team Baraka. And unfortunately, like many people who supported the mayor in his first term, I became disappointed. I became disappointed in the fact that he did not hire people to run departments that were qualified. I was disappointed that there was a lack of female participation, a lack of diversity on his ticket. In his administration, but I got even more disillusioned and disappointed when I saw the abuse of power, when I saw that he and his brothers were doing things that were causing lawsuits. We have an unprecedented number of lawsuits under this administration for abuse of power, for sexual harassment, for intimidation. And I thought that this person, because he was a son of Newark, that he was going to use the opportunity to build Newark and to take it into the 21st century on warp speed. Unfortunately, he became extremely divisive and tried to pit one nationality against another. And it was more so that whether it was his way or no way. And I know in government, having been in government prior to his election for 11 years, that you have to have a collaboration, but there has to be a clear delineation between the legislative branch and the executive branch and the judiciary branch, which I saw being blurred continuously under this administration, which gave me pause and made me understand that I was not going to run on his ticket. Then I decided in December, because people were asking me, the community asked me, Gayle, please run as mayor. So that's when I made the decision in December.
Now, this is obviously not a decision to be taken lightly, but clearly, when you made that decision, you knew that there were some major issues that would be your platform. What would you say are the major issues facing our city, and that will be critical? Let's say your three main goals if you were to be elected mayor.
Well, first of all, crime is certainly prevalent in our communities, but it has creeped into areas like the Ironbound and the Weak Waste section and the Ivy Hill and Forest Hills at a number which it had not previously under other administrations. So crime, I'm going to make sure that we do have enough police deployed on the street. The current mayor was very critical of his predecessor, Senator Booker, former Mayor Booker, because he had such a large executive protection detail unit around him. This mayor has between 25 to 30 police officers assigned to himself, his brother, his mother, and friends and family. Well, that kind of money that's being spent, like $5 million per year on just overtime and their salaries, could be redeployed back into the city's coffers for the police. So if we had had $15 million more, we would have been able to protect more people and not just a select few. The other issue is the training of the police academy. We let the certification under Mayor Booker lapse, and now it's the time to bring it back. The mayor is doing the smoke and mirrors political thing, saying, oh, we're bringing back the police training academy to the city of Newark, but the state of New Jersey is saying you have not applied for the ability to train new recruits. So it's going to be for police officers and firemen to be retrained, which they have to be, and they should be. I advocate for that. But yet again, it's a political ploy and publicity stunt that's being done during election time. I would make sure that the other issue that we face is employment. Our job training and workforce training for the citizens of Newark is not as effective as it should be. We built 4 hotels in the last 4 years, and we did not have a hospitality and restaurant and hotel management courses being utilized to be trained to train Newarkers to get those jobs immediately. We have a lot of IT companies who have moved into the city of Newark, and we don't have the training for the people. So we're not training people for the emerging markets or creating markets where we will have entrepreneurship or with the medical field. I mean, we have 3 hospitals left in the city of Newark. We're not training people in allied health programs that they can immediately make careers and not just have jobs as cashiers at ShopRite. Even though it's a noble job, it's not a job that will make people be able to stay here in the city of Newark. And the third thing is to make sure that the quality of services that residents deserve and need in their community are met. To have these streets as filthy as they are, to have the potholes as big as they are, to have sanitation workers being overworked and not having the right equipment for snow removal is a disgrace. I mean, these are just the basic services that any community is supposed to have. So, and customer service. When people come into City Hall, they should not feel intimidated. They should not feel unwanted. They should not feel like they're just being brushed off. We need people who can speak several languages to be able to deal with the population that comes in. We need people who come to work and are ready to work and not just there because they're politically affiliated with someone and don't have to do the work.
Staying on the issue of public safety, many segments of the city in all the wards, whether it be family members from South America, from Central America, the Caribbean, or even of African nation countries. Many families who live in the city of Newark do have, let's say, family members who are undocumented, and the issue of sanctuary cities is something that concerns a lot of folks. What is your position as relates to Newark being a sanctuary city?
Well, the city of Newark passed a resolution saying that we are a sanctuary city. But the problem that we have is that the city of Newark is also working very closely with the Essex County ICE Detention Center. So on one hand, we're saying we're a sanctuary city, but then on the other hand, we're supporting the ICE Detention Center, which is breaking up families. So we can't be able to protect undocumented workers if we're working in conjunction with our police, with the Essex County ICE Detention Center.
Right.
So it's a tale of two cities.
We hear that, and again, I think the big issue that does make sense for sanctuary cities is it's important that all residents, whatever your documented status is, if there is a problem, you need to cooperate with law enforcement so that we know the true crime numbers in the community, and so that those numbers aren't underreported.
Well, they say the mayor said, well, he went through the steps of getting people the ID cards. Well, most banks, unfortunately, will not recognize those ID cards. But I'm more concerned about the fact that there's a silence from the council and the administration when we know, in fact, the Essex County ICE Detention Center down on Doremus is actively breaking up families.
It's without question is something of concern throughout our city. And again, it's not many people think about the East Ward as being, but
it's
these
in the
issues
West Ward,
throughout the entire city.
Central Ward, you have the Haitian community, you have the African community, the Caribbean, as you stated.
So moving on, because there's so much to talk about that's important to our city. I wanted to talk a little bit about the issue of education. Recently, the city of Newark was granted local control back. I mean, there is a process, and it does take time before there's 100% local control. But can you tell us a little bit about what you feel that means, and what would be your key, let's say, education initiatives if you were to be elected mayor on May 8th?
Well, first of all, I'm glad you said that it is taking time, because the mayor keeps saying that we have local control, and local control will not be back into the city until 2020. That's when we'll have local control back. But more importantly, what I want to do is take the best practices of the public schools and the charter schools and marry those practices in order to get the best education for our children. Too many years have been used to pit the charter school parents and families against the traditional public schools. We need to be able to make sure that in all the schools that remain open, that we are funding them at the level that will help us to have our children be able to compete globally, and not just, right now they can't even compete nationally in many cases because of the education that they're getting. But there are a lot of schools that are good. If the charter schools are not working and or the public schools are not working, they should be closed. And we should make sure that the schools that are open are functioning at the level that will help our children with STEM practices, help our children with vocational schools, because some people are not going to go to college, but they need to be able to have a trade, and we need to be able to start them in the high schools. There used to be wood shop, there used to be mechanical training, there used to be home housekeeping kinds of jobs, and that allowed somebody, maybe if they had a beautician, a cosmetology, if they had a license afterwards and they graduated, they could go on and become entrepreneurs. But we have to look at the crisis that's going on with our education system and look at the best practices and convene all of the stakeholders together to decide how we're going to do this and move it quickly.
Well, you had mentioned as one of your top issues the concept of employment and insufficient job training. I mean, along the lines of the education initiatives, do you have some particular models that have been effective so that our job training initiatives and even our youngsters can be ready for a career once they leave high school?
Yes,
if they don't go to college.
Yes, several programs around the country have helped children to monetize their passion. It's nothing worse than having to go to a job that you really don't like. Those children who know how to draw and love computers, we can be teaching them how to become animators. Like I said, with the hospitality industry, it's not a dead-end job. It is a unilateral and bilateral movement within the hospitality industry. Something where they can do catering, or they can work in restaurants, or they can become the chefs of their own restaurants. With the allied health programs, we have the courses that can train people to be dental technicians, radiology technicians, and people who draw the blood of phlebotomy. Those kinds of positions don't take a lot of years of training. And we are not putting our people in those career paths so that they will be able to maximize and be able to come out and then be able to support a family. And then they could afford the housing that the mayor keeps claiming that we're building with the inclusionary zoning ordinance, this affordable housing. I keep saying affordable for who? Because everyone can't afford to pay $1,400 for rent.
I'm staying on the issue of education. And one thing that hasn't really been brought up in this campaign, or I haven't noticed it, once we do get the local control, there will be an opportunity at some point to choose what type of a school board we have. Many folks are perplexed at the fact that as critical as the education system is, we get 5% turnout on school board elections. Do you have an opinion on what would be the proper type of board? Should the mayor have control of a board? Should it be a hybrid, or should it be directly elected?
I am totally against a hybrid or a mayor choosing all of the school board. I think the democracy of the families going out and voting for a school board is critical because it makes the community responsible as well. I'm very saddened by the low turnout, and it gets lower and lower each year. But I also believe it's because when you have political people making the decision as to who the candidates are going to be, and they're not offering up the quality candidates that they should, if they're serious about education and knowing that we're going to get the school board back, then it disenfranchises the voters, it disenfranchises the teachers, and it disenfranchises the students.
So at this point, we want to move on to another critical issue in the city, which is that of healthcare. I think everybody will acknowledge that one of the councilwoman's greatest successes in this last term was her role in helping to save St. Michael's Hospital in the Central Ward and keeping it open. Obviously, the hospital serves not only the Central Ward but other parts of the city. But there's still a whole series of issues with healthcare in our city. The emergency wait times at University Hospital are still something out of the third world. The East Ward does not have a hospital, does not have quality ambulance service. Can you tell us what's your take on the current state of access to health care here in the city of Newark, and what would be some of your initiatives if you were elected mayor?
Well, first of all, the health care initiatives that I would undertake is to make sure that we do expand the ambulance services. It may even be a point where we have to bring it in-house and have EMT and EMS under the city through a private company as a third party working directly with us. Each ward should be able to have volunteer ambulance EMS workers. It is a shame and a sin that you mentioned UMDMJ, Rutgers, whatever they call it now. The wait time in the emergency rooms is horrible. But it's the same thing at Beth Israel. I've known people to be in the hospital, in the emergency room, and waiting for a bed for 4 and 5 days in the emergency room. So we have to address the issue of health care, and we also have to address the issue of making sure that hospitals do get the opportunity to reopen in vital communities. One of the reasons why I fought so hard for St. Michael's was not for just the people of the Central Ward, but it was to give Newarkers the option of having another hospital besides UMDMJ and Beth Israel. And so, and I knew it was critical because I know this population in the East Ward, and they weren't going to go over to Beth Israel and go up to UMDMJ. So trying to save someone's life, they would be trying to get to Clara, Mass, just to get there, and may die en route. So we have to have all of the partners, and we have to talk to our federal and our state legislators about making sure that we do have the money to help with these ambulances and the dedication. The city of Newark, a young lady, Donna Jackson, who you know well, brought up the issue that
everybody knows Donna.
Yeah, everybody knows Donna, who brought up the issue that when she was waiting for her son, unfortunately, who has diabetes, that there was 45-minute wait time. That is unacceptable in a city of this size. We have to make sure that we have enough ambulances. We have to make sure that it is dispensed throughout the various 5 wards. But most importantly, we have to look at being able to incentivize these hospitals to open up so that they're just not outpatient treatment centers.
Now, one of the big trends throughout the nation, is, especially in urban areas, is a focus on preventative care, the lack of access to primary care, and that's being addressed through clinics. Do you believe that we have enough access to preventative care services here in the city of Newark, and should we have more access to, for example, clinics, so that people can get to illnesses early and not wait to then end up in an emergency room?
Oh, absolutely. For years, our emergency rooms, unfortunately, have been used as the primary care doctor for a lot of residents of the city of Newark. I myself had the opportunity just this past Monday to visit the urgent care, the city MD on Broad Street near the Haynes building. And it was a very short wait time, but we have to make sure that we use those kinds of facilities to properly give people access to health care and to do more for prevention, especially in our senior citizen population. And our chronically ill patients, we have to encourage them to be able to access those type of facilities, but to stick with one so that their medical records could be able to be utilized as a baseline. I went that day, I could have gone to St. Michael's, but at that point I was doing a ribbon cutting downtown and I was not feeling well. So I said, let me go into the urgent care and see how the city MD process works. But we also have to look at the FQHCs that the city is supposed to be providing. Those aren't up and running at the full capacity that they need to be, and we need to encourage people to go to those, but we have to make sure that we make them readily available and make them accessible, but more importantly, make them professional, so that it's not a nurse practitioner. People feel comfortable if they're seeing an MD. So we have to make sure that we have the qualified staff in those FQHCs.
I think we would all agree with that. An issue which is related to healthcare, but it's a healthcare risk. Last week, the Wall Street Journal reported that there was a nonprofit agency that was going to sue the city of Newark over lead in the water. Your campaign obviously was also very vocal about that. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what is going on, what is the nature of that proposed lawsuit, and how serious is that as a risk to the residents at this time?
Well, as a former legislator yourself, you would know that one of the reasons why this particular lawsuit was so important is because this group that was suing the city of Newark was the same group that sued in Flint, Michigan. And the city played games with the Oprah request, and they kept delaying to the point where you had like 10 different nonprofits send a letter collectively to the mayor and to Mr. Kelly and
The business
administrator to say that this information we needed to have. And it wasn't until the courts finally said, you have to give them this information, but the city redacted the names of the people because they said they were protecting their privacy. But more importantly, what they did was they redacted the information on the streets. So the question becomes, what are we hiding, and why aren't we notifying our residents that there is lead in the water? And they said it was because of our treatment plant. And they also asked for information to be given to them to say, where did the city test that? And if there's not an issue there, then why is the city being reluctant to give that information? It's because it's election time, and they don't want to turn around and have the people know that there's a problem. But we can't risk the lives and the health of people based on elections. That if children are having higher risk of lead contamination because it's in the drinking water, and our senior citizens, we have a responsibility to own it, to say what it is, and to deal with it. So we're going to be pursuing it even more because the mayor has poo-potted and said, oh, it's fake news. But there's over 10 different reputable newspaper outlets who have said that this issue is real, and this group has proven that the testing that has been done in the city of Newark has not been sufficient, but more importantly, it's been selective.
So to be clear to all our viewers, and Councilwoman, correct me if I'm wrong, the state of New Jersey and, let's say, City Hall has stated that, in general, Newark's drinking water is safe. However, there are some older buildings that have lead pipes, and if you believe that you might have an issue, you have an older building, please make sure you contact the City of Newark's Water Department, and they will do testing to make sure that you are, in fact, safe. Are you okay with that statement?
Well, yes, but it goes a little further than that, Albert, because what the state is saying is that for 2 years now, the lead levels have not been reported directly to the state. The Board of Education has been doing it, but not the city. So the state of New Jersey has cited the city twice already for the lack of responsiveness. Now, if you're not going to give it to the nonprofit group that you feel came from Flint, Michigan to start trouble, you still have a responsibility to give it to the state. And if you're not turning that information over to the state of New Jersey, then one must question, why aren't you doing so?
Well, it's clear that there is an issue there.
That's right.
It's not that there's nothing there.
Absolutely.
But it's not completely widespread. The important thing is for people to educate themselves about it, inform themselves, and reach out to the appropriate agencies should you have any question about that. On another step with the water is the issue of the city's infrastructure, and we lose water is one of the city's greatest assets.
Absolutely.
But yet our system is extremely old and in disrepair, and we lose, some estimates say, as much as 20 to 30% of our water. And many people know in different parts of the city of our sewer issues. How would you grade the current state of our infrastructure in the city of Newark, and how can we begin to fix some of those problems?
Well, first of all, we do recognize that Newark is the third oldest city in the country, but we have to make sure that our water pipes, our pipes that go through the city, our sewer systems and the water systems are fixed properly and changed. So, we're talking about spending $2 billion to incentivize Amazon coming here. So we have to do the same thing when finding the money to redo the infrastructure. When the state of New Jersey put us under state monitoring for our finances in 2015 and 16 and 17, one of the things that the state said was that we had to redo certain capital improvement repairs on infrastructure regarding the water. If not, they would take over the Pequannock treatment plant and they would take over the reservoirs. And as you stated, the greatest asset Newark has besides the people is our water. And so therefore we did raise the taxes of the water in 2014 and 2015 to moderate and to remediate, rather, the water system for the great part to be up to the state standards.
And all of those fees were dedicated exclusively to
for
upgrading
capital
the system.
improvement. For capital improvement. Unfortunately, the administration has kept the taxes going up in 2016 and 17, and the question that I have is, well, why are you still raising people's water and sewer rates if we're not still doing more infrastructure repairs? And we see that the Passaic Valley Sewage Company, which has a line item on our water and sewer bill, is increasing in large numbers their dollar amount that they're charging the city of Newark, because we have not made the capital investment of putting meters on Passaic Valley. So whatever overflow from the other municipalities that utilize our system, Newark is bearing the brunt of that. Well, I find that ridiculous when we have two sitting council persons at large. Council President Mildred Crump and Councilman Luis Quintana should be fighting Passaic Valley to say, wait a minute, put meters on here, because we're picking up everybody else's slack, and it's costing the city of Newark money, but most importantly, it's costing the taxpayers bills to go up. When you have your sewer rates going up higher than the water rate, how could your consumption be less than the sewer rates?
Without question, it's something frustrates a lot of Newark residents is the high water and sewer
and the
bills.
property taxes that have been raised.
We want to move on to the issue of development. We know you've also been very heavily involved. I believe you're chair of the Tax Abatement Committee.
Yes.
You know, there is a lot of development going on in Newark. I think, you know, most people fail to realize that most of the major projects all received major state tax incentives.
Absolutely.
To get done. Tell us a little bit about what you feel, are appropriate issues relating to development as we move forward. And, you know, this last term, the City Council brought up the issue of inclusionary zoning. They adjusted the density issues close to Penn Station. What is your general take on how this administration's handled development, and what are some of the issues that you would address if you were elected mayor?
Well, first of all, I am fully in support of the density being built around Penn Station. I think it is underutilized right now, and I have been supportive of that. The inclusionary zone ordinance, to me, unfortunately, because it is a hodgepodge of legislation that was put together very quickly. There was 5 or 6 different versions, and in doing so, it's not clear. There's some contradictions within the ordinance itself, so I voted no for that. But I do believe that we have to have a realistic conversation about what is affordable and who is affordable for. We encourage people to have always come to the city of Newark to diversify the city. We don't want to be known as just a black and brown city. But we also have to take into consideration, are we pricing people out of the city? And if we're doing that, that's because we're not at the same time working with our federal legislators as well as our state legislators and developers who have money, and encouraging them to build housing for youth that are maxing out of the DIFAS system. You know, that money follows that child when they are emancipated, or if they come out of DIFAS because they were living in foster homes. We have senior citizens who are raising their grandchildren. There are dollars for those kinds of housing, because there's 2 that were built up in Boston that I looked at those plans. And we also have to make sure that our college students that want to remain here in the city of Newark have housing. So maybe it's not the bedroom, the living room, and the dining room. Maybe they just want that studio where there's a common kitchen area and a common bathroom area that they could utilize, but is still affordable for a college student who's trying to pay off college loans. So we have to look at the housing stock and be more innovative.
So, the city has, there's always a dilemma when folks, when we talk about tax abatements. And, everybody realizes the city needs more ratables to be able to sustain its operations and obviously try to reduce property taxes for existing property owners. And then people usually have a knee-jerk reaction saying that tax abatements aren't necessary. Problem is with the high property taxes within the state of New Jersey, not just the city of Newark, any major developer basically can't move forward with a project without a tax abatement. So I guess, what is the balance there? How do we get this so that, some of the concerns, which might be accurate, that there are some greedy developers, but then how do we balance that with the fact that we need more development, we need more ratables, and without abatements, most of these projects would never happen?
Well, none of them would happen probably because, as you know, as you stated, and people don't understand that the tax abatement is the last step to show that the city has some skin in the game. Because, like you said, they come to the city with tax credits that they've gotten from the state. A large number of developers over the years have gotten monies from Prudential to help fund their development. And so the tax abatement is the last portion. And what people don't understand is that when we get tax abatements, the percentage of the money that stays into the city's coffers to help with the city budget is a lot more, as opposed to whether they were on the regular, what we call ad valorem tax base, where we would have to split that money with the county as well as with the state. So we are able to keep more money in-house when it is a tax abatement. But we have to utilize that because Newark's development base is not strong enough, and the rents aren't here to support that. The middle class is not here at the level we need right now to support those projects going forward without the tax abatements.
So one other issue, big picture issue on development, and we talked about some of Newark's greatest assets. Obviously, a city is its people. We talked about water. But without question, Newark's been gifted by
location.
Its location. It's all about location, location, location.
Yes.
Do you feel that the city of Newark, from a development perspective now, in terms of the city administration trying to promote the city and bring appropriate development to the city, do you feel that we have properly leveraged what is without question a world-class transportation infrastructure?
Unfortunately, we haven't, and it's been a dilemma for years in the city of Newark. One of the things that was brought up at last night's debate was the fact that we have over 55,000 college students. Where do they go at night to party? Where would the middle class person who moves into the city of Newark to send their child to school? So quality education is an issue when we're talking about the use of our intermodal city. Newark has the seaport, the airport, trains to the planes, the highways. So we have to even look at the subway systems. Right now, the city subway only attaches from North Ward through part of the Central Ward to the lower part of the East Ward if you're getting off on Penn Station. Well, we have to push that kind of infrastructure up and out like San Francisco has in order to connect the city. There is an opportunity right now for the PATH station is going to be opened up again at Weekway in order to have that as a stop. So we do have to look at the transportation, but we also have to create the environment for a walkable city. We have to look at some streets and close them off and make sure that it's just for pedestrians so we can push people into the neighborhoods and push people in for shopping and things like that, which will help us. Right now, our airport, one of the things I would propose as mayor, I would ask our state assembly and our senators to look at the fact that if we could add a surcharge tax to those cars that park in and around the airport right now. Because if we were just to get a quarter or $1 from them, that would help the city of Newark build on its infrastructure. The mayor said last night that the governor is going to help us with infrastructure and I just don't understand where all this money is coming from the state budget.
State has its own problems.
The state has its own problems. I mean, by the time we deal with the pension issue, property tax issue, I don't know, and public school funding, I don't know where Governor Murphy and the mayor feel that all this money is going to be coming from. But
now, you were actually one of the early supporters of then candidate Murphy when he was an underdog for the position, but he has endorsed Mayor Baraka. Do you feel? How do you feel he's doing so far, and do you feel that he is somebody that will be able to help the city of Newark?
Well, he definitely is going to help the city of Newark because, as all governors know, Newark is the anchor for the state of New Jersey. Yes, I was the first elected official in the county of Essex to come out and support Mr. Murphy, Governor Murphy. And it's interesting when people say to me, well, Gayle, how do you feel that he supported Raz when Raz was supporting Fulop? And I said, you know what? In politics, he's looking at numbers. He's looking at the fact that there are a large number of people, whether it's the county execs, senators, assembly people, who are supporting the mayor. So my election is a people's campaign. Phil Murphy can't vote in Newark. And at the end of the day, I'm looking for the people of the city of Newark to say that they're tired of their streets being filthy. They're tired of the crime. They're tired of the lawsuits, the numerous lawsuits that have been brought unprecedented under this administration, and the divisiveness that has happened with this administration of neighborhoods and people who are being intimidated when we have our senior citizens being told if you vote for a certain candidate, you're going to lose your apartment. And when you have workers who have been lifelong friends or even family members, if they're supporting one side, they can't support the other side. They don't speak and they say, well, we'll come back together May 9th. Well, that's childish and immature, and it's such a Trump-like tactic that I'm really thinking that maybe instead of having graduated from Howard University, maybe the mayor also took a course from Trump University and graduated from there.
Well, that's an interesting comment. Before we move on to a few more topics we have, one of the things when you do run for mayor is obviously you have an entire slate with you. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your slate and what they bring to the table, for the citizens of the city of Newark?
Thank you. The slate that I have is dynamic. And I started with the first person who I did ask to be on my slate was former Councilman Hector Corchado, because I knew he brought not only the knowledge of public safety, but he also, being a professor at Montclair State University, but he also had the knowledge of government, having been a former deputy mayor, having been a former deputy police chief, having been the director of Taxi Cab Commission. I know he had a wealth of knowledge. Then I asked Councilwoman Bessie Walker.
And he was a councilman.
And he was a councilman of the North Ward. Bessie Walker, someone who is well known throughout the city, who was also a councilwoman, but she had knowledge of the Board of Education, but she also had experience with social services because she, for over 15 years, worked at the county with the Division of Community Action, where she helped with social service issues, and she helped organize nonprofits to get together. She's very knowledgeable about recreation. She specialized in that at the Board of Education over the years, but she also was a person who had done things with senior citizens and for young people. So with those two people having the experience they had, I felt comfortable building the rest of the team. And the next person who I did ask was a young lady. Her father will kill me, and he was very upset when I did, but I asked her because I felt she was an asset. Crystal Fonseca. She's a young lady. She's running for the East Ward. She's a young lady who I have seen grow as a legislator in the school board system, and who is very much involved in the community, always has been, even before election time this year. But I thought to have somebody young and dynamic like her. Rashan Hassan she would be the first Cuban American to be voted in on May 8th. Rashan Hassan, he also was a former president of the school board, and when it was the advisory school board, but he had the qualities and knowledge base of mentorship and dedication to the community that mirrored the late George Branch, as far as I was concerned. And so he's very into budgets, and he works with Verizon and the customer care service and telecommunications. So I wanted to bring him on and was extremely happy to help him have balance out. Then there's a young lady who I call her Joan of Arc. Her name is Coutinho because she decided to run in the North Ward against the incumbent, a friend of mine, Aníbal Ramos, but she is taking on the machine. She's going straight into the propellers, and she's walking boldly and knocking on doors of the people of the North Ward, and she's expanded the territory of the North Ward and really gone after the voters. And then up in the West Ward, I have a young lady, Emeka Keys. And Emeka is running for the West Ward, and she was part of the USVO organization, the Heart of Valesburg. I used to see her come to the council meetings very prepared to talk about questions about what was going on in the West Ward. But what I always was impressed with her was that she always brought solutions when she came. So I asked her to also be a part of the team. I did not fill the last at-large position, but I did get the young lady, Ariana Perillo, who also was on the school board. So I have 4 people who have a lot of knowledge about the Board of Education, how it works, how we should engage parents from both the traditional public school side and the charter school side, but more importantly, how the Board of Education can institute programs that will bring our children up to speed and be able to compete on a global level. And I didn't fill the last position because I wanted the citizens to make a decision. You know, we're looking for 3 of your votes. You can vote for the 4th council person at large yourself. And I did not put anybody in the South Ward. And that was out of respect for Councilman, Senator, Mayor Sharp James. His son is running on the Baraka ticket. And I have always respected Mayor James and looked at him as a friend, a mentor, somebody who I felt made the city of Newark what it is and what we're able to capitalize on 14 years later, 15 years out of him being out of office. And these projects are coming online now, and to show what a great visionary he was, I just said that the South Ward, the residents could make up their own mind as to who they were going to support in the South.
So, as somebody who's been a councilwoman now for several terms, with a break in between, and now is running for mayor, what do you believe is critical in terms of the council-mayor dynamic for the city to work well?
Well, first of all, we have to go back to the structure of the Faulkner form of government that existed prior to Cory Booker's administration. The Faulkner form of government has a strong council, strong mayor dynamic. I didn't pick a bunch of people to run on the slate with me that were going to be yes people. I picked people who were independent thinkers, who could bring something to the table, but would also voice their opinion and say, no, Mayor, that doesn't make sense. Or, no, we're not going to do that. To make sure that there are checks and balances. Because with the Cory Booker administration, the council had no check and balances because he paid for their running on his ticket. They were obligated to do 98% of what he wanted them to do. And they did 98.9% of everything that he wanted. And that's not how government is run. And even though Mayor Baraka did not have all of the people who ran on his slate win, he tried to create that same type of hybrid where it was about the mayor and the council was secondary. And that was one of the things that I was most offended by, because I know that there are 3 separate branches of government, and if you don't have check and balances, which you see happening at the Newark Municipal Council, is a mirror of what's going on in Washington. We have lawsuits that are coming up. We have we have the FBI and the feds in the building looking at both Newark Housing Authority as well as the government. We have people who are in positions that should not be there. They're woefully out of their ability to do the job. And, we have the scandals with the women and, so, I mean, it's like Ken Gibson said, so goes Newark, so goes the country. Well, I didn't realize that we were going to be Trump like here in the city of Newark, and the intimidation tactics and the disparaging comments that are made by the mayor is demoralizing for the employees as well as for the residents.
You mentioned former Mayor Sharp James, and everybody obviously is entitled to their opinion, but those who are more recent to the city, one thing that history will be clear is that without Mayor James, there would not have been an NJPAC in Newark, there would not be a Prudential Center in Newark, and clearly there's plenty of discussion around that. But again, 2 other great assets of the city. Do you believe, how do you see that those 2 institutions are working? We also have the museum, a great institution here. Do you believe that we're properly leveraging, those 3 cultural assets for the maximum benefit of the city?
Well, we could maximize them more, and I'm proud to have been one of the people who voted as a legislator for NJPAC being built and for the arena being built, as well as for the Prudential Tower being moved, something that was called Triangle Park at the time when I was the chairperson of the economic growth. We were able to do the swap of land that is now going to be known as Mulberry Commons, which is going to be an amphitheater-style park. And the maximizing of those cultural assets have been beneficial to the city of Newark and has increased the presence of Newark on the world scene. The museum. We have one of the world-class museums. Mary Sue Sweeney Price did an extremely, extremely wonderful job in shepherding that museum to becoming one of Newark's and New Jersey's national treasures. But I also see the on the opposite side where we've fallen short on keeping another crown jewel polish, which is Symphony Hall. And looking forward to the fact that there is now renewed interest from the corporations to take all the progress and all the development that we've seen on the north side of Broad Street and bring it down to the south side of Broad Street, because that is our major corridor and thoroughfare. And it is a reflection to the people when they come to Newark of what we see and what they're going to experience. And that's one of the reasons why it's so important that it's not a lopsided tale of 2 cities.
Well, without question, you mentioned Symphony Hall, which has struggled, and while the museum has done well, an institution in Newark which is struggling because also we are in different times as a Newark Public Library,
yes.
Which I served as a chair for over 10 years back. Some time back, but again, there are major assets for the city. I want the last topic, because it's incredible how time does fly. I wanted to talk about it's a quality of life issue, but I also believe it's something underappreciated asset to fight the issue of crime and public safety, and that is recreation.
Absolutely.
I think we all realize that our youngsters, too many of them are attracted to gang life, and I've always been a proponent, and many others, that effective recreation is a way, to keep them away from that. What is your view from what the city is doing as regards to recreation and the value of that, and what should we be doing more of?
Well, first of all, we should have organized recreational programs that are offered in our institutions. We have JFK, we have the Ironbound. But I just saw the press release saying there was another ribbon cutting for the Ironbound rink. recreation center that's been over 20 years.
And closed for 32 years.
32? Oh, okay, 32 years. But more importantly, the money's been there since last year. So one thing is, where's the incentive to speed the market to make these things happen? We need to make sure that we recreate the relationship between the city of Newark and the public schools for after-school programs. Elnardo Webster Sr. used to run a dynamic after-school program for our youth. We have to make sure that we have people who are willing to mentor and be those Boy Scout leaders and Girl Scout leaders when we used to have. The recreational programs that we have are not adequate enough to entice all of our children to come, but it's a matter of safety. Our parents don't feel safe. Like our parents would drop us off, or we could walk to our respective parks in our communities. You have parents now who, these children, most of them don't even know what a bus looks like because they're being chauffeured to and from soccer practice or basketball practice. And I understand that's because of parents being afraid to have their children just walk the streets. But we do have to concentrate on doing recreation programs, and not all of them are geared around just the athletic aspect. It's about interaction. It's about teamwork. It's about pride. And we need to have the intramural games go on back like we used to in the city youth games, because it gave our children a chance to travel out of the city of Newark, be ambassadors for the city of Newark, and to interact and learn sportsmanship, to learn about, it's not always about winning, it's about participating. I was fascinated by a young lady when I was working at the Essex County Division of Welfare when Sandy happened, and she was saying that her daughters were driving her crazy because there was nothing for them to do. And I said, get a flashlight, and let them play board games. And she looked at me and said, what's a board game? And I was like, wait a minute, am I dating myself? But I realized that, she had, the children had only used electronic iPads or Game Boys and things like that. So I took her across the street and I bought for her children Candyland, Sorry, Monopoly, Operation. And they had so much fun that she said once the lights came back on, they still wanted to play Connect 4 and things like that. Those kinds of games helped challenge our minds. Checkers and chess, they helped us learn to interact with one another. I see children, my own grandson, one of the things I make him stop doing is he'll come in, he'll pull out that iPad and he'll just stay on that game thing I'm like, talk to me, speak, hello. And so those kinds of things are needed in our community, and they are deterrents. When we had the PAL, very active, the PAL, Police Athletic League, when we had Girl Scouts, those anchoring institutions in our communities, and the Catholic Church, we had the CYO, Catholic Youth Organizations. We had those kinds of things, and so we really were villages raising each other's child. And it does take a village, and we do have to have those kind of recreation programs for not only our youth, but for our seniors. Our seniors are living longer now. We should be having our seniors out in the park doing Tai Chi. We should have them being able to do Zumba and those kinds of programs in their buildings and out of their buildings. But one of the things I've learned as a Central Ward councilman is a lot of the landlords don't allow the seniors access to the common community rooms because they use the excuse, they're not going to keep it clean or whatever. But that's horrible, because you're forcing seniors to not socialize with one another and to have to stay up in their own apartments.
Well, incredibly, our time has come to a close. Obviously, Councilwoman Chaneyfield-Jenkins has a vast understanding of issues facing our city. We'd like to thank her during this very busy final stretch of the election for taking time to be with us. So with that, Councilwoman, do you have a final message for our viewers?
Yes, first of all, Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I am very much concerned about making sure that the city of Newark realizes it can do better, and we will do better. We've given the sons of the city of Newark an opportunity. I'm asking you to help make history by electing me, Gayle Chaneyfield-Jenkins, A2, as the first female mayor of the city of Newark, but to help bring in the team Chaneyfield-Jenkins, because it is a diverse group of legislators, experienced and unexperienced, that will make sure that we work towards bringing the city of Newark the quality of life and the destination city it should be, and making sure that people get along.
Well, thank you once again, Councilwoman. Best of luck to you and
Thank you very
to
much,
your entire
Albert.
team.
Thank you.
And so that concludes this interview and VejaTV's continuing coverage of Newark Municipal Elections 2018. Again, we encourage everyone to make an informed decision, educate yourselves, but please make sure you vote on May 8th. Thank you all and have a good evening.